Hello. Another Pixar movie review. This one is going to be about Toy Story 3, which came out in 2010, which was also the year that I graduated high school, which is, of course, very conducive because of the fact in the movie Andy is, graduated from high school and he's getting ready to go off to college and everything. And so it's like, it was very, Andy graduates. I graduated from high school in 2010 and everything. So it's just kind of a fun thing to do with that. Um, Toy Story 3 is obviously the third one in the Toy Story series. After this, the next Toy Story one would be Toy Story 4, but that's a little bit down the line. Fun times there. This movie, of course, just kind of starts out in kind of a dream play type sequence and everything. It is set about 10 years after the Toy Story 2, which, of course, was set in 1997. So it's, taking place, so many years later and everything. And it kind of starts out with, like, this Wild West sequence where it's, Woody trying to stop Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head as One-Eyed Bart and One-Eyed Betty. Of course, stop them from robbing this train. And, he's got Jessie and Bullseye there helping him and everything. And, so it's just like, it's this like fun imagination thing where it's just like all the toys just having fun because we know in actuality, once we pan out a little bit, that it's Andy just playing with the toys. But, it's, all the toys just, having fun together and everything and, them getting played with by Andy. And, we see Jessie and Bullseye, as I said, we see, Buzz saves the train that's full of orphaned trolls. And then, of course, there's, Slinky is like the attack dog of the force field, and Rex is, this, dinosaur that eats force field dogs. And then we have, Ham as Dr. Evil Dr. Porkchop and everything. And, just like we see them all playing together and they're all just, having this big fun story that Andy is just like making up off the top of his head and everything. And like we pan out and we see, it's Andy in his room playing with his toys. And we see, his mom comes in and she's like filming him on the video camera, which, a lot of the times, that time frame, it was lots of like home movies were done and everything. Hence, look at, America's Funniest Home Videos. But, lots of, his mom comes in and she's like filming Andy playing with his toys and everything. Like all these, he made like a spaceship out of like cardboard, like a cardboard box and like all this other stuff, and him just having fun with the toys. And like he's got Molly and, the dog's name, Buster, they're coming in and like he's having fun with them and everything. It's Attack of the 50-Foot Baby and, just like all this other stuff. And, it's like just like them having fun. And like we cut through like this footage of like Andy getting older. Like it's like Molly's birthday. And then it's, all this other stuff that we see of just like Andy growing up and getting older and like him playing with the toys and playing with Woody, like him watching a movie with the toys and everything. And, just like all this other stuff. And, it's just like, it's like the home movie setup of like, what, his mother watched as Andrew grew up in their house and everything. Andy and Molly growing up. And then we cut to, Buzz and Woody and the rest of the, group minus Wheezy and Bo Peep, because Wheezy either got rid of or got sold or something like that earlier on. And then we find out in Toy Story 4 that like Bo Peep got sold to someone else. But that's not really part of the main story of this one. That's Toy Story 4. But what ends up happening is, we cut to them in the toy chest where they've been for a while. Because Andy hasn't been playing with them as much because he's been in high school and he's had, school and he's, had all this other stuff that he's been doing, more, less kid stuff that he's been doing and everything. And he's like, getting ready to go off to college is like what's explained, and like they've like drug in like Andy's cell phone and everything, and they like got a hold of his cell phone, which is just like a little flip Nokia phone, which is like pretty similar to the first cell phone I had, but like they get that and like they have like Andy's phone number and they like type that on the phone to like dial the phone to try to, it's like this whole big like playtime operation to try to get Andy to come and find them in the toy chest and like find his cell phone there, and then like maybe like see the toys and want to start playing with the toys and everything. And there's this really heartbreaking moment in this little section here where we see Andy like talking into the phone because he's like trying to figure out like who's calling him, and somehow like the rest of the group have like another phone. So I don't know if this was like an older phone of Andy's or if it was just like Andy's mom's phone or whatever, but like they have this other phone that they're using to dial Andy, or it's the home phone maybe, I don't know. And Andy's like, hello, like, and we see, and like Woody is the one that's holding the other phone, so he hears Andy's voice on the other end of the phone, and it's just this sad moment where you see Woody like just so like he wants to have Andy play with him because that's the point of a toy, is to be played with by a child. And he's just like really sad about that and everything. And Andy just like picks Rex up out of the bin, like puts Rex back in and like closes the bin, and like he's like yelling at Molly, I told you to stop trying to mess with my toys. I didn't do anything with your toys. And we know there's a bit of an age difference between like Andy and Molly, because he's already like, I think he's supposed to be like, I don't remember how old he's supposed to be when Molly's born, but he's already pretty well, at least like, well, he's not 10 when Molly's born, but he's old enough to like help with her and everything when Molly is born. But now it's like, the daughter, the sister is like, she's like on the cusp of becoming a teenager type of thing, and sibling rivalry and everything like that the two of them have a little bit, but they're still siblings. They still get along and everything, but they still love each other and everything. And what we see happen is we see all the toys like, well, it was a long shot to try to get Andy to play with us. What are we going to try to do now and everything? And it's, Andy's leaving for college at the end of the week. What's going to happen with us? And Sarge and the little army men, like they head off. They like parachute out the window. I'm like, I don't know where they got the parachutes from. They parachute out the window and fly away. And Molly's mom their mom comes in, Mrs. Davis comes in, and she's just like, okay, so here's the thing. Andy, Molly, you guys, Andy, you're going to be leaving at the end of the week. You need to go through and you need to put away, pack whatever it is that you're taking with you to college, throw away anything that's trash, and put away anything that needs to go into the attic for safekeeping while you're gone. Because anything that you don't do that with, anything that's not, college or marked as attic, is going to go in the trash when you leave. I'm throwing it in the trash when you leave. And, so he's just like, yeah, fine, whatever. And like she tells Molly, just, go into your room and put away a bunch of your toys that you don't need anymore, that you don't play with anymore, put them into the box, and I'm going to take it to Sunnyside Daycare. And she's like, yeah, fine, Mom. And what ends up happening is, Andy's like just thinking about what he wants to do with the toys, with all of his chest of toys and everything. And I mean, like, all of us have this moment when you're like growing up and you're like looking at like these toys that you've had for a very long time. Toys that you've had since you were a kid, or that you got as you were growing up or whatever. And it's that moment where it's just like, well, do I want to keep these? What can I do with them? Is there a reason for me to keep these? Is there enough sentimental value for me to want to keep these? And sometimes with toys, you can justify the sentimental value of things. Nowadays, also, you can like justify, oh, well, the monetary value of like, sell them on eBay or something like that. Whatever, just sell stuff on eBay. I've done that too. I had like a whole, on the note, because we do see Barbie as a main character, one of the big characters in this movie, because like she's Molly's Barbie that like Molly like donates to like Sunnyside and everything. And so Barbie's like a big character in the movie. And I mean, like, when I was growing up, Barbies were, still a big thing. I debated about bringing some of my Barbies with me to put in the background for this video, but I'm like, nah, that I don't really have, like, you wouldn't see them close enough to really see what they are. I mean, like, I still have some of my Barbies just because I still have them. I just have never gotten rid of them. And, I also they had these Barbie, like, read-along books, or books that you would get that were, like, every month they would send you a new book in the collection. It was, chapter books, and, like, each of them was, like, a different story. Some of them were, like, more futuristic, because they were, like, science fiction ones. Some of them were more, like, just, like, modern day, like, Barbie and her sisters, and some of them were more, like, fairy tale-esque type things or whatever. It's like, oh, Barbie's this princess, or Barbie's this thing over here, or there's, like, this quest Barbie has to go on, or whatever. And, they had, like, pictures in the books that were, like, the Barbies dressed up in the outfits. Some of the outfits that Barbie had were really nice in those books. And, like, I had those books, and there was a whole backpack that went with them. but like those books, I still had them several years ago and they were still in really good condition. So I just like had someone that my mom knows that sells stuff on eBay sell them for me. Hopefully they went to, a good home. I have no idea. But Andy is trying to figure out what to do with his toys, and he's like looking at all of the toys that he has in his chest, and he's just like, yeah, I don't, he's like, he like takes them out of the chest and he starts putting them into a trash bag. And the last two that he pulls out are Woz and Buddy. Buddy and Buzz and Woody. I can talk and I know these characters. Buzz and Woody are the last two that he pulls out, and he's like looking at them and he's trying to decide, when he puts Buzz into the bag with the other toys and he puts, Woody into the college box, which if you know some extra thing about Toy Story, like behind the scenes stuff, it's supposedly that like Woody was like Andy's dad's toy, and then Andy's dad gave it to him because there's like a whole theory that like Andy's dad is dead and that he gave Andy Woody, as a toy, after he'd had Woody, when he was a kid, and then he gave it to Andy. Hence why Woody is like so old and so valuable. Hence the plot of Toy Story 2. But he takes the rest of the toys and he puts them into a bag, and Woody had been pointing out to the rest of the group, just like, going into the attic is fine. There's board games up there, there's books, there's like Christmas decorations and everything that we can talk to and have fun with and everything. It's like much less likelihood of like people walking in on it. So it's just like they have much more of an ability to just kind of like relax and everything, and they're not just going to be stuck in, Andy's toy chest whenever he's not, whenever he's in the room. And what ends up happening is, Andy's going into the hallway to like, he's like pulled down like the ladder that like goes into the attic, and he like pulls that down and he's ready to like carry the bag up that has all the other toys in it into the attic. So it's like, but what he sees that the rest of them are going to go into the attic, and like they're kind of panicking in the bag thinking that they're going to go into the trash, because like Andy didn't say that these are going in the attic or anything like that. He just put them into the trash bag. And he's like getting ready to take them upstairs or put them into the attic, and then Molly comes out. She's, he like helps her carry a box downstairs, and like the bag ends up getting left in the middle of the hallway, and the attic door like shuts on its own, which is like not a very well designed attic door, but it shuts on its own. And what ends up happening is their mom comes along and she like grabs the bag and she thinks that it's trash. I mean, it's in a trash bag, and she didn't actually look in the bag, so and she like takes that out to the curb, and like Woody is watching this whole thing like, oh no, that's not trash. And he's like running to the window. Like he tries to get Buster to come up, but Buster is now like this old dog at this point in time, old, kind of fat wiener dog at this point in time, but he's still cute. And, Woody like looks out the window and he sees like the trash guys are coming, and he's like running out, like he grabs a pair of scissors and he's like running out to the trash trying to, cut the bag open to help his friends get out. And like, the bag gets thrown onto the curb and everything, and like they're just like, okay, we have to get out of this bag. And like they use Rex's tail to like poke their way out of the bag. And the guy that's the garbage man is Sid from Toy Story 1. That is confirmed that he is Sid, because it's like the same black skull shirt and everything, so it's still Sid. And he seems to have gotten a bit more peppy in life. I was like, he's a garbage man, but he seems to be very happy with his job from the little bits that we see of him through the movie. But what ends up happening is, Woody thinks that the rest of the toys got crushed in the garbage because he saw he didn't see them escape the bag and everything. And then he, sees the bag get crushed, and he's like, oh no. So, but then he sees them like running toward the garage, like in the recycle bin, and they're just like, okay, so they're okay. And he goes in, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to go into the box here that's labeled Sunnyside, and they're going to go to daycare, which they think sounds like a good idea. Woody tries to explain to them that no, daycare is not a good idea. And, he's like trying to convince him. He's like, no, you guys weren't supposed to go to the trash. It was an accident. You guys were supposed to go in the attic. And like, there's a bit of a resentment between like Potato Head and, Woody in regards to the fact that like, you were going to go off to college and everything. So it's just like, oh, what are you going to do now? And everything. And, Andy's mom, gets in the car and she drives off with like the box in the back that's labeled for Sunnyside. And they get to Sunnyside, and Woody tries to convince the rest of them to like get out of the box and like hide in the car until they can ride back to the house, and everything. After she's done with dropping all the other toys off at Sunnyside, they're supposed to go to daycare. And like Barbie is in this box, and she's like really sad about having to go to the daycare because she doesn't want to go, because she like because Molly was her kid, and now she's been sent off and everything. And it's just like when you're watching these movies, even when you're like just as you're growing up, or even when you're an adult and you're like watching the Pixar movies, you're like, if toys actually have feelings the way that they portray them in the movies, it's like, what toys did I give away and maybe didn't end up in a very good home? It's like that type of a whole concept. But, she's like, they get to the daycare, and like we're introduced to this little girl named Bonnie, who of course we know, if you've seen the movie, you know what happens with Bonnie. But like they take the toys and they put them into like one of the I think it's like the elementary school room or whatever, like that, like the first or second graders or whatever. They put the box in there, and then like all the once all the humans leave, because like all the kids are outside at like recess at this point in time, and what happens is all the Andy's toys and Barbie and everything get dumped out of the box, and they end up meeting all the other toys that are at this preschool and everything, and they're like welcomed in, and there's like Lotso, Hug and Bear and everything, call him Lotso and everything. There's like Big Baby, that's like this baby doll that has like a lot of its clothes, or like accessories are gone and everything, and there's like the Ken doll, the smooth talking Ken doll and everything, and he instantly like sees Barbie, and there's like the whole the slow motion thing of like he sees Barbie from across like the playmat, not across the room, but across the playmat, and like she's like, oh my god, have we met before, type of thing. It's like that whole thing with Ken and Barbie that I do kind of like. I do like what they do with Ken and Barbie in this movie, and it's like it's the whole thing of like, and like even later on down the line, Ken has a really good moment with Barbie that I'll get to later. But what ends up happening is, like Lotso's like, so this is the way things work here. This is a daycare. Even if like once the kids grow up and everything and they move on, there's more kids that'll come in. And, like he shows them all these pictures on the wall of like the kids, the different classes over the years and everything. And Andy well, maybe not Andy, but Molly like went to this daycare. It's like stated that Molly went to the daycare as well, which would have been after like they moved at the end of the first Toy Story movie. Molly would have probably gone to this daycare at some point in time. Probably not Andy so much, but maybe a little bit. Maybe like coming to like to pick Molly up and everything at times, depending on that age gap there between the two of them. But what ends up happening is Lotso's like explaining the way that their place works, and then he takes them into like the caterpillar room, which is like for the kindergartners, like the little kids. And it's like, so here's the thing, this is this is where you guys will be. This is called the caterpillar room and everything. You'll get played with and it'll be fine. And like he's like this very kindly old grandfather type thing. He even has like a cane that he uses to walk around on, like a walking stick. I'm like, okay, whatever. You don't have joints. You're a stuffed bear. And like they make the whole place seem really, really nice. Like there's like there's some new characters that get introduced. There's like a stretchy octopus that is just called, I think it's just called Stretch or whatever. And like the octopus is voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, and I'll go over this later, but it's like doesn't have a huge part in the movie, but it's there. And like those stretchy toys that are like that, they're like the gooey type toys and everything. My niece loves slime, and I just look at slime and I go, that is going to get everywhere, and you are not messing with it anywhere near any of my stuff. Type of stuff, those types of things, or like the stretchy sticky toys, and just like those just are, I find those weird, but like kids like them, so whatever. And like what happens is like they leave the new toys, Andy's toys, in the caterpillar room, and there's this moment between when they leave, and like Woody is saying, so I have to go back to Andy, and you guys need to come with me. And they're just like, no, we're going to stay here. We're going to stay here. We're going to get played with and everything. And, we're going to be what toys are supposed to be. This place sounds great. And, like, they kind of butter it up a little bit. Otto kind of buttered it up a little bit for, like, how nice things are. And, Woody's like, no, I have to go back to Andy. And they're just like, you go back to Andy. And like Barbie went to go off to go be with like Ken and like Ken's dream house and everything. And what ends up happening is, Woody leaves, and there's like this kind of like this moment where he's trying to convince them that they're supposed to come back with him, that you guys are supposed to come with me, you guys have to come back home, you guys are still Andy's toys, whose name is it that's written on the bottom of your foot, it's Andy, it's, all of that. It's like he's trying to convince them that they're supposed to come back with them, and it's just like, no, because they were all under the impression that Andy was going to throw them away, and which, like, we as the audience know is not true, and Woody knows that's not true, but the others don't. They thought that they were going to get thrown away, not put in the attic. And what ends up happening is, Woody leaves kind of like in a huff. He's like, mad at the others. So it's just like, they're not listening to me type of moment. He like heads off, and he like, there's this like kind of like Mission Impossible escape thing that like Woody has to do to like get out of the building, and he's on top of the building, and then he's like tries to kite away, and then he gets found by Bonnie, and she takes him home. And we cut to, because like Bonnie's mom works at the daycare, so like, sometimes different toys, I guess, catch her attention or whatever. And she like takes Woody home and everything. And we cut to back inside the caterpillar room, and they find out that, oh, this is a room full of kindergartners, when all of them come back in, and it's just like they see the other toys like trying to hide and like try to stay away from the kids, and like the kids get into the room, and they're just like crazy all over the place. They like use Jessie's hair to try to paint. They're like drooling all over everything, chewing on everything, breaking pieces, pulling Rex's tail off, like all this other stuff, just like not taking any form of care with the toys. Which I used to work at Goodwill, and we had like a section of toys, which is toys that people have donated, and we, if it can be resold, if it's still in good enough condition, we try to sell it. And basically what would happen is parents would come into Goodwill, and they would just, like send their kids off to go play in the toy section, even though there are signs up in the toy section that says, these toys are for testing and for buying, not for you to use to entertain your child. Because you didn't bring a toy with them to keep them entertained when you're inside of a place where they should be quiet, because there are people trying to work here. And, like the kids would like mess with all the toys and everything in the aisle. And then, all the employees have to go and like clean it all up and everything, which is of course what happens. And then pieces get lost. And if you wonder why you don't have everything in a toy, in like a puzzle or a toy set or like a puzzle set or a game board set or something like that, did you buy from Goodwill? Possibly the pieces may have been missing before they came in, but we don't have time to count every single puzzle piece. But the other thing is, kids open the boxes and then they make a mess with them. Yeah, and we've all been around kids that are just like, they make a mess of their toys and everything, and like they're not very gentle with their toys. And like Buzz ends up looking into like one of the other rooms, and he sees, like those kids are being much more gentle with the toys. Ken and Barbie and like Lotso being much more cared for and everything. They're not as destructive as like these kindergartners. And that night after all the kids leave and everything, all of Andy's toys are just like, oh, that is not the way we're supposed to be played with. And they're just like, oh god, that just like, that's much rougher playtime than what they're used to. And they develop this idea where they're just like, okay, well, we're gonna escape the room and everything. Like, they get Buzz out of the room, and he's like gonna go and like try to find Lotso. And like, okay, so Lotso, we can't be here. We can't be in this room because it's much too the kids play way too hard with us. They don't know how to play with us correctly. And what ends up happening is, Buzz makes his way out, and he sees like Ken and some of the other toys go off, and like they go into like this, in and behind a vending machine in the wall, and then like Buzz follows them, and he's like listening to them, and they're like they're basically having like a I will jump back to Woody in a minute, but like they're basically having it's like a casino setup, because it's like, it's like a roulette thing, but it's like one of those toys where it's just like you pull the thing and like this arrow spins and like lands on a farm animal and says, the duck says this, the cow says this, the chicken says this, and like they have that like set up that way and everything, and that's just kind of funny. And so like they're just like talking about this, is there anything in this, anything out of those new toys that we think will last long? I was like, well, there's the space guy and everything, and there's like, hey, you got yourself a keeper there, Ken, that pretty Barbie doll, and he's just like, leave Barbie out of this type of, he's already kind of like, she's okay, and blah blah blah. And Buzz like listens to them say this and everything, and he's ready to like sneak back to go and like tell the other toys what's going on, rest of Andy's toys what's going on. And he's captured by Big Baby, and then he ends up basically getting captured by the rest of the toys. And I'll jump back to what happened with Buzz in a minute. But we cut to Bonnie's house where she gets home, and she, brings Woody into her room, and she has like a tea set up with like her, her Triceratops name's Trixie. She's got like a, stuffed hedgehog. I have a stuffed hedgehog over there named, Mr. Prickle Pants. There's Dolly, which is just Jolly. There's Chuckles the Clown. And then there's Buttercup, which is a unicorn. And then she has a stuffed Totoro, which I'm like, good girl, Bonnie. Good girl. You have a Totoro. Good little Miyazaki. Good little Miyazaki girl, which of course, so many of the animators at Pixar love Miyazaki because John Lasseter adores Miyazaki. So that's why there's like that reference thrown in there is Totoro. And so Molly is of course like playing with Woody and the rest of the group and everything, and like they're just like, you're really good at playing, and Woody is just like, I'm a toy. And like we cut to he's just like having, he's getting played with, and he's having fun with Bonnie because Bonnie is playing with her toys very similar to the way that like Andy used to play with them and everything, just like making stuff up on the fly and everything, like having fun with them and everything. And so, Woody like gets to have fun playtime with them. And then, we cut back to where Sunnyside, what Buzz has been captured, and he's like kind of being like interrogated to a degree by Ken, which Ken is not a very intimidating man in any degree, but he's like trying to intimidate Buzz to like, I don't know, talk. I'm like, what do you expect Buzz to say, first of all? And what ends up happening is like Lotso shows up, and he's like trying to like, plays like the whole, they're doing like the good cop, bad cop setup where he's just like, why do you have this toy tied up? Why do you got Buzz tied up and everything? And it's just like, we're gonna do, Lotso explains to Buzz, it's like, well, you see, the way that things work around here is that the newer toys, the stronger toys, they get played with by the kindergartners because somebody has to get played with by them. And you guys are newer, therefore you're much more durable than like the older toys. I'm like, well, I guess that argument can be made with like maybe Buzz and like Rex and like maybe some of the others, but like if you follow the logic from like Toy Story 2, Woody and Jessie and Bullseye are both like 50 or all like 50 some years old or something like that at that point in time, given the fact when the show would have been on, for when Woody's Roundup was on. So there's not quite, that doesn't quite add up. But what ends up happening is Lotso basically ends up like saying, oh, well, that's okay, Buzz, you can come and come into the the older kids room, or the older classroom. She's like, okay, that's great, and I'll get the others and they can come with me too. No, just you, because you took initiative. The other ones have to stay there. And he's like, but we're a family, we stick together. And it's like, okay then. And then basically they go to the bookworm in the library, and the bookworm is like, here, I found the instructions, they're under Lightyear, and like they basically reset Buzz, set him from like play to demo, and Buzz goes back to the way that he was at the beginning of the first movie. He thinks that he's actually Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, and evil Emperor Zurg and everything like that. And what ends up happening is, they do that, and Mrs. Potato Head is like doing this moment where she like, because she only has one eye at this point in time, because her other eye got like lost in Andy's room somewhere, and she like takes out her one eye and she like looks underneath the door to like see what's going on outside if like Buzz has come back, and she's like looking, and then like she sees like a ghost of Andy walk by, and she's like, oh, Andy, and then she like her other eye like awakens, I guess, like within the confines of Andy's room, and she sees Andy and his mom talking, and she finds out that like she's like explaining this to the rest of the group that's there, and she's like, Andy's talking to his mom. we weren't supposed to be thrown out. We were supposed to go into the attic and everything. And it's just like, oh, maybe we should have listened to Woody. It's like, why would Woody lie to you? First of all, why would Woody lie to you? You know, it's just like, that's like the whole plot hole in the movie. It's like, why would Woody lie to you about that? About going into the attic. And what ends up happening is, of course, you know, that's when Lotso shows up. And it's basically a thing of like, intimidates the toys. He's got Buzz now on his side, thinking that, you know, Buzz is, you know, is actually Buzz Lightyear again and everything, and not a toy. And like has him like capture the rest of, you know, Andy's toys and like put them into like, you know, bins to like keep them, I guess, like under guard for the rest of the night and everything. And you know, Mr. Potato Head gets thrown into the box, aka the sandbox, on the playground and everything. And like, you know, Lotso is basically revealed to be like, I would say Lotso is somewhat of like a mafia boss in this case, or like a kingpin or something like that. And of course, you know, Lotso's, you know, it's just like, no, this is where you're gonna stay. You're gonna stay in this room and you're gonna get played with by the younger kids. And like Barbie sees this happening and she's like, you know, Ken's like tries to convince her to come back, and then she's like, no, I'm staying with my friends. And so she gets locked up too and everything. And we cut to Bonnie's house that night, and you know, Woody, yeah, he enjoyed getting played with by Bonnie and everything, but he wants to get back to Andy because of course Andy's his kid. And you know, the rest of Bonnie's toys end up helping him find out where like Andy's house is, because like he knows Andy's address. It was like 320 Sycamore or whatever it was. And like, you know, Woody like, I guess like Google Maps it or like whatever, and it's just like it's right around the corner from like where he is now. And he's just like, oh great, that's awesome. And he's like, before he's about to leave to go and start making his way to Andy's house, he says, and if you ever end up at Sunnyside, tell everybody there that like Woody made it home. And I was just like, oh, you came from Sunnyside? She's like, yes. What's wrong with that? And they explain that, oh, you need to talk to Chuckles. Which, like, I love how the fact that it was just like, just deadpan. You need to talk to Chuckles. And I'm just like, it's like, that's just funny because when you pan over, you see this clown toy that is like frowning. Like he's not a happy clown. And he explains that him and Lotso and Big Baby had all used to belong to the same kid, the same girl, Daisy. And like, you know, her, and you know, she loved all of her toys and everything, and like she loved Lotso the most and everything. And like he says, like, you never saw a kid and a toy more in love, more perfect for each other. And then one day, you know, while the family was on like a road trip or whatever, they stopped off at a stop area, and they played outside, and Daisy fell asleep, and then like they put her back in the car, and then like they forgot the toys, which I'm like, okay. And they like forgot the toys, and then like they, you know, Lotso and Big Baby and, you know, Chuckles all wait for Daisy to come back, but she doesn't come back, so they start walking and making their way back to their house, back to Daisy's house, and they get there and they look in the window and they see that Daisy has a new Lotso. And like Lotso just kind of snaps because he gets angry at Chuckles, and he gets angry at like Big Baby, and he's just like, no, she abandoned us, she replaced us, she doesn't want us anymore, so we're gonna go and we're gonna find somewhere better. And you know, Lotso was actually the only one that was replaced, but you know, don't know exactly about like Big Baby or, you know, Chuckles or anything like that, but Lotso was the one that was replaced. And they end up eventually making their way to Sunnyside. And Lotso then basically like strong arms and like takes over the whole place and everything, because he is like, Big Baby is kind of like the muscle. And then at some point like Chuckles broke, and then Bonnie found Chuckles, and she took him back to her house and everything, and now she has Chuckles as one of her toys. And Chuckles like explains all of this to Woody and everything, and that if he wants to save his friends, he has to go back to Sunnyside and everything. And Woody's like, yeah, I do. And he like sneaks into Bonnie's backpack, and we cut to the next morning, and like all the rest of the toys, you know, all the rest of Andy's toys are like let out of their quote unquote cages, and they're going to be played with by the kindergartners that day, very roughly, unfortunately. And what ends up happening is like Woody snuck into Bonnie's backpack and like snuck his way into Sunnyside and like sneaks out, and he ends up sneaking his way around the building. And he ends up actually finding there's this little telephone that's called a chatter telephone, and I think I had one of these as a kid. Either I had one or my grandparents had one at their house that like the kids could play with, or it was around me somewhere, either in the nursery, at church, or it was like at the daycare that I went to or whatever. But like I think I had one of these at some point as a kid. Most of us had like some form of like a telephone that we could talk to, because it's just like, oh, I want to be like mommy and daddy and talk on a phone. And like, but the telephone ends up talking to Woody and explaining to him that you shouldn't have come back. And he's like, I came back for my friends. And he's just like, okay. And he's just like, the telephone basically tells Woody the way that like Lotso has the entire place rigged. Like there's the security monitors everywhere and everything. And there's like the one that like guards all the security monitors is the monkey, which is just like this tambourine clanking, banging monkey and everything that watches all the security cameras at night and everything. Like Lotso, it's basically like a prison. There's like rotations on like there's like trucks that guard the hallways. There's the security cameras. There's patrols outside and everything, and in the playground area and everything. And what ends up happening is Woody works on a plan. And it's like everything is useless to get out unless you take care of the monkey. You take out the monkey, and you should be able to get what you need. And the only way the toys get out of here is in the trash. And so Woody I guess develops this plan in his head, and then when the other kids, when the kindergartners go out for recess or whatever, Woody shows up to the other toys, and they're like, oh my god, Woody, we're so sorry that we doubted you. Please help find us a way out of here. And he's like, don't worry, that was my plan and everything, and I've got a plan. And that night, they put Lotso and the rest of them do roll call to put all the rest of the toys back in their places, and there's this whole convoluted plan that they come up with, which ends up working very well, because it's Mr. Potato Head still gets thrown into the sandbox out back, and then what ends up happening is via distractions, Slinky is able to escape out of one of the his cell that he's in, and Barbie begs Ken to take her back. She's like, please, Ken, please, I'm so sorry. I can't stay here anymore. Please take me back to your dream house. And he's fine, and brings her back to the dream house and everything. The rest of the group are just kind of waiting for the signals, because Buzz is left to be their guard and everything. And Woody and Slink end up sneaking their way into the security office, and after some scuffling with the monkey, they do end up getting him all taped up and everything. So he's mummified, taped up monkey that gets put into one of the drawers in the security office and everything, and they get the keys so they can get out. And then Barbie has snuck in, is with Ken, and Ken ends up putting on this fashion show of all the different all these different outfits that he wears, and shows her his closet and everything. And I'm just yeah, that's kind of a fun little homage there to all the different outfits that they've had Ken and Barbie wear over the years. Hey, I admit it, there are sometimes when I go to I was about to say grocery store, but that's wrong. When I go to whatever, Walmart or Target or whatever, and it's yeah, sometimes it's fine to I don't mind looking at the Barbies and just seeing because some of the outfits that they designed for Barbies are just gorgeous outfits. One of the Barbies that I still have, it was a wedding dress Barbie, and the wedding dress was just one of the most beautiful wedding dresses I've ever seen. And I love the dress. It's not a dress I'd want to wear, but, or at least not for any extended amount of time, but certain dresses that they put on Barbies are just great. And it's just kind of fun watching the fashion show that Ken puts on, which is just really, really funny and all get out, and I love it. And he's, Barbie is just sitting there loving it, and then eventually she tricks him, because he comes out, and she actually she outsmarts him, because she whacks him upside the head with something to knock him out, and then she has him tied up to one of those not ping pong, but like the bouncy ball racket. She's kind of like tied up to that in his underwear, and she's like, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna tell me what Lotso did to Buzz. And he's like, I'm not talking. And she like basically tortures him by like ripping apart a bunch of the clothes. They're just like, oh god, no, I can handle this. And she pulls out like I guess a really nice one, and she's just like slowly ripping it. And he's just like, oh god, no, please stop, stop. I'll tell you. There's a manual in the library. It has the Buzz's information in it. That's what Lotso used to like make him go crazy again. She's like, thank you. And she like puts on like this and I love what Barbie does. She puts on because she like can't send Ken to do it, so she like dresses up in like one of his outfits that she can like pretend to be him in, and it's his spacesuit outfit, and so it's got like a mask that can't, it's helmet that can't be seen through, and she goes into the library and like tells the bookworm, I need the Buzz Lightyear manual again, and he's just, well, I don't know why Lotso can't wait till this for morning, but here you go, wait till morning for this, and he gives her the thing, and he like Barbie like in the spacesuit is like walking off, and like she's wearing heels, and the cat, the bookworm just kind of looks at her, and he thinks it's Ken, of course, but like looks at it, and he's just like, whatever. I'm like, that implies that Ken has walked around in heels before, which I just find hilarious. I love how they do that with like Barbie in the movie. She's just like awesome. I love how they do that with her. She's like, screw it, I'm not going to be the damsel in distress. I will use that to my advantage. And like, so she gets the manual back to Woody, and like the rest of the group have like, they've kind of like escaped from their bins, and like, cause like the monkey's not paying attention anymore because he's like all tied up and everything. And, like the rest of the group are like, got Buzz trapped and everything. And like he tried to escape, then they like, stopped him and everything. And then they're working on trying to get Buzz put back to normal. And like, they try doing, the played a demo and everything, try to fix that. And then like, they end up like, there's like a little tiny hole underneath the battery area, or by the battery area, where it's like you insert like something there, and like it'll reset Buzz or whatever, and like they do that, and it ends up like resetting him, but it makes him speak Spanish instead. He goes into Spanish mode, which is just funny. And then like the rest of the group are just like, it's basically like Buzz's whole reintroduction to like when he's first brought up, he's just like, yeah, amigos or antes amigos and everything, and it's just like, amigos, we're friends. And, it's just like, so it's just like, oh, good. And, like, it's just like, Buzz is just like very, like, he, like, it's just so funny watching it. And Woody is just like, we have to get him fixed, at one point. But then that's like, they got to work on escaping. Like, there was, like, this whole thing, I was like, with Mr. Potato Head and, like, all of his limbs, like getting put onto a tortilla for whatever reason, I guess, to go and like spy on Lotso or whatever. And at one point that he ends up getting attacked by a pigeon, and then he like gets ripped apart, and then he ends up putting himself like he ends up in a cucumber. He's like got his hands and legs and everything in like a cucumber, which is just funny later on. And like the rest of the group, like they escape, and like they're working on trying to get through the playground to the trash can, and like they run into Big Baby, and like they get past him without being noticed, and like they're getting they're almost to the trash chute that they need to get into to get off, because like the trash truck, they can hide in the trash truck and they'll get dropped off back at Andy's house eventually. And they're doing that, and like during that time frame, Buzz, like, Spanish said, Spanish, set up Buzz, like, sees Woody. And, like, we know, like, at the end of Toy Story 2, like, there's this slight little romance that looks like it starts between, like, Buzz and Jessie. Excuse me, between Buzz and Jessie, not Woody. That's a different story. Between Buzz and Jessie. And what happens is, like, there's also the slow motion thing where it's, like, Buzz looks at Jessie, and she's just, he's just like, like falls in love, and he like starts like, oh my god, you're so the most, like, in Spanish, and I can't do Spanish, but it's just like, oh my god, you're the most beautiful thing, flower, rose, desert rose that I've ever seen, type of thing. And like Jessie is just like, okay. And then like Buzz thinks that Jessie and Woody are together at one point, and then also when they're like working on escaping, there's this moment where Buzz like goes into like flirtation mode, which is just hilarious because not only is he like still thinks that he's Buzz Lightyear, he's also like Spanish version of Buzz Lightyear, which apparently makes him able to dance because he starts like dancing around and like trying to like tango with Jessie, which is just hilarious. Trying to like impress her, which is just really, really funny. And they end up getting to the trash chute, and they're like ready to go to like get down to the trash can to like escape and get to wherever they need to go next. And that's when Lotso shows up, and he's got like Big Baby with him and like a couple of his other Goonies and everything that show up, and like he like is like, it's either you come join us or you go in the trash and you head to the dump. And they're just like, no, we're going back home and everything. We don't want to stay here. And there's a moment where Barbie actually has like this really great speech about like the way that power is supposed to come from the people as opposed from like the government or like whatever the setup that she gives. And like it's like, that is not a speech I anticipated coming out of Barbie's mouth, is like the look that everybody has on their faces when she does that about that. And like Ken shows up and he's just like, no, he's like, no, Barbie, I'm so sorry. He apologizes to Barbie, and like Lotso like reprimands him. He's just like, there's like a million other Barbies out there just the same as her. And Ken goes like, no, they're not the same as her. And it's just this great moment because it's just like it affirmed that Ken really liked Barbie, and like Ken chooses to like get like jump across and like ends up like kind of being with them. And what ends up happening is Woody actually ends up kind of challenging Lotso in the fact that he's like, well, what about Daisy? And he like has like this little tag that had been around like Big Baby's neck, and he like throws that across to like remind them of Daisy, and like, no, she didn't replace all of them. She just replaced you, and you're just a bitter toy and everything. And Big Baby, Lotso like destroys this like little tag that Daisy had made for them, and Big Baby just kind of snaps at that, grabs Lotso, throws him into the trash can, and just like closes the dumpster lid. And like it's just like, was it that easy? And like so they're just like they're ready to cross across the dumpsters to go and I guess wait wherever they need to be to get back home, to like get to their next step to get back to the house, back to Andy's. And like so they're like getting across the going across the dumpster, and what ends up happening is Lotso ends up grabbing Woody, and like Barbie and Ken like stay at Sunnyside, but like Lotso like grabbed Woody, and the rest of them end up all in the trash bin. And that's when the trash guy shows up, and they get carried off to the dump, and they get taken to the dump. And while they're in the dump itself, the landfill, what ends up happening is they have to like escape through the landfill and everything. They get like scooped up, and they get almost separated a couple of times, and like Lotso is there, and like Woody, like because Woody is a good person, a good toy, he tries to save Lotso at one point. Like Buzz ends up getting like reset back to what he's actually supposed to be, like the actual their friend Buzz. He after he gets like a television dropped on him, he gets like brought back to the way he's supposed to be and everything. And like the rest of the toys, they like Woody like saved Lotso, but then Lotso is still being a dick to them because it's like, you toppled my empire it's like, you toppled my empire within a daycare, but you still toppled my empire, and now I'm going to make you pay for it. And Lotso like could have helped them, but he chose not to. So yeah, Lotso's bad, and he heads off. And there's the moment where like all the toys are like on top of this section of trash that's going to be like dropped down into the incinerator. And there's this moment where all of the where it's this emotional moment. It's like in the theaters itself. It's like, I will admit, when I saw this in the theaters, I did cry during the scene, and I will admit it. I am not afraid to admit it. And yeah, there's stuff in Pixar that makes me cry. There's stuff in Disney itself that'll make me cry. There's stuff in Marvel that makes me cry. But what ends up happening is, all the toys, it's like, what are we gonna do? And like Buzz grabs Jessie's hand, and Jessie grabs Bullseye's hoof, and like the potato heads are together, and like Rex and Ham and Slink and Woody, and it's just like they're all holding each other's hands, so they're all like together, and they're all just like they're ready to go to whatever their fate is, to be burned alive together, because it's like, if we're gonna go out, we're going out together moment. And it's just like, oh God, my childhood, no, type thing. Just like watching it, like, no, please don't die. And so that happens. That's fun. And then like we cut to Claw comes down, scoops them up, and carries them off, because the little green aliens had got moved away at whatever point in time, or like during the moment they were like separated at the landfill. And like they apparently got taken into, like, I don't know, the headquarters of the landfill, and like they used the claw to save their friends, to save Woody and the rest of Andy's toys, and like they dropped them outside. And they're just like, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, you saved our lives. We are eternally grateful. And like they're just so happy and everything. Like everybody's like, oh, thank God we survived. I wonder what happened to Lotso. And like we cut to Lotso, and he like gets found by like one of the garbage men. And apparently the garbage man takes him and like ties him to the front of one of the garbage trucks, and just like drives with like Lotso on the front of the garbage truck. And I'm just like, oh, you should have tried to be better, Lotso. Sorry. And he's like, not in a good spot. And what ends up happening is, Buzz and the rest of them are just like, well, we have to get back to Andy. And, we got to get Woody specifically, so that way he can head off to college with Andy, which is like that morning is like when Andy's heading off to college. And what happens is, they end up finding their way to the garbage truck that has Sid driving it. And it is, I think it's stated, because I think Sid was supposed to be a little bit older than Andy in the first movie, and I just, I think I knew that. I think he's just like a little bit older than Andy, but he is kind of stated to, I guess, be 21 years old, I guess, in this movie, at this point in time. So he's, that explains why he already has a job, as opposed to Andy that's like going off to college, or just now graduating high school. Andy, or Sid, would have been, I guess, like 3 years older than Andy at this point in time, but what ends up happening is, they sneak their way into the garbage truck. Sid don't notice them, and like they get driven back to Andy's house, and like they get themselves, since they're all covered in trash and like mess from the kindergartners, they get hose themselves down so they're all clean, and then they like climb in through Andy's window and get into like the box that's marked attic. And they're all ready to go into the attic. They're perfectly fine with that. They'll, Buzz makes, or Woody, or Jessie makes the comment, it's just like, it's okay, Woody, everything's going to be fine. And I know about Buzz's Spanish mode now. Buzz, my what? I guess he does not remember, of course. And, what ends up happening is, Andy and his mom come into the room, and like Bonnie's there, and they're just, Andy and his mom have this moment where they're like saying goodbye, and it's it's like, your kid's going off to college. It's not like he's leaving forever. On that note, the weekend that I'm recording this, one of my cousins just graduated from college with her doctorate, and then I believe the next weekend after that, her youngest brother is going to be graduating with, I just believe, his bachelor's. So, and there's like other people around me that are like graduating from either college or high school at this point in time. And I was like, I applaud them. I tried college. It was not for me, but like, I applaud the people that make it through. Particularly those that go for like the really hard degrees, like doctorate and, medical doctorate and everything, like my cousin did. I applaud them very much. But, it's, she's still sending her son off to college and everything, and he's not going to be at home as much anymore and everything. And she's like ready to say goodbye to him. And, we watch them saying goodbye. And during that moment, when Andy and his mom and, Bonnie are like saying goodbye, or not Bonnie, Molly are like all saying goodbye to each other and everything, Andy's saying goodbye to them and everything one more time. Woody gets this idea of like, he grabs like a marker and like a sticky note, and like writes a little note on, a sticky note and like plops that on the box. And then Andy comes in and he looks at the box and he sees the note and he's just like, oh, you know, he thinks it's from his mom. It's actually Woody. And it's just like, oh, do you really think I should donate these old toys and everything? And like he looks in the box and he sees that it's his, you know, the toys. And he's like, you know, his mom's like, you know, whatever you want to do. And he gets into the car and he drives over to Bonnie's house. And he's like looking, you know, he sees Bonnie in the, you know, in the yard playing with her toys. Very similar to like the way that Andy used to play with his toys, with, you know, making up elaborate stories and everything, which I kind of used to do that too a lot. You know, I made lots of like additional things for like my toys for me to play with and everything, like little rooms for the toys and everything. I had like a whole shelf that was like set up as like, this is a mansion for the toys. Diorama. And what ends up happening is, you know, Andy comes in and like he, you know, his, you know, Bonnie's parents kind of recognize him because maybe he went to the daycare or something like that. And what ends up happening is he, you know, brings the box over and he puts it by Bonnie and he's just like, hey, you know, I've got some toys here that, you know, I think that you might really like. And he like starts showing her all the different toys and everything. You know, this is Jessie. She's the roughest, toughest, you know, rootinest, tootinest cowgirl in the West. And this is her horse Bullseye and they're never parted. And, you know, he goes through each of them, you know, each of the toys and like starts handing them to her. And she's just like really, you know, like smiling at each of the toys and everything. And then he, you know, he's like ready to, you know, back away because he thinks he pulled, you know, like Buzz was the last one. And then Bonnie, like, I guess looks in the box and she sees Woody, and that's when Andy spots Woody. And, you know, Bonnie, like, she's like, oh, that's my cowboy. And we see this moment where, like, Andy has the moment where he, like, pulls Woody closer to himself because, like, Woody has been his toy for a very, very long time. And, you know, regardless of either how long he had it or whatever, it means a lot to him. And regardless of whether or not you want to agree with the whole thing, it's like, oh, it came from his dad or whatever, Woody means a lot to Andy. It was enough that he was going to be willing to take Woody to college with him. And, you know, and he just kind of like sees the way that Bonnie's looking at Woody, and he makes up his mind of this one more, you know, gesture of gives Woody to Andy, or gives Woody to Bonnie, after he says, you know, this is Woody, and he's will not choke up. The little speech that he gives about Woody is the quote on the end of the video. It's, you know, this is Woody, he'll always be loyal to you and everything, he'll never give up on you. That whole thing, and he gives Woody to Bonnie. And, you know, so now he's like passed on his toys to Bonnie. And they actually end up playing for a while. And it's like, yes, saw this in the theater, cried then. Sometimes occasionally still cry when I watch it on the DVD. This moment, try not to cry now. But, you know, what we see happen is, you know, Woody and, you know, Bonnie and Andy play, and the Ty and Matt videos all over again. And, you know, they play, and, you know, so the kids get so the toys get played with by Andy one last time. And, you know, I will get through this. We'll get through this. And Andy leaves. And, you know, his toys and Bonnie's toys, they now get to know each other. They watch Andy leave. And it's emotional. What can I say? And, you know, so the toys are going to be happy with Bonnie. They're going to be safe with Bonnie. And, you know, we get the end credits. We get all the end credits showing, you know, Buzz and Woody and the rest of the toys getting to know Bonnie's toys. And we find out that, you know, Sunnyside is much better now, because You know, Barbie and Ken are kind of the ones that are now in charge, and the toys are having so much, you know, so much better time there and everything. And you know, and there are a couple of shorts that happen with Toy Story after the end of Toy Story 3, between like Toy Story 3 and 4. And I may do a video where like I break down, where I talk about some of the different Pixar shorts or some of the Toy Story shorts or so. We'll see. Just because they do kind of have like a prevalent setup for the story itself, particularly like some of the specials, like the Christmas or the Halloween specials that they did. But, you know, so it's like everybody's happy at the end of the movie, and the end of the movie, you know, goes out with like, you know, Ken and Barbie are happy as their couple, and Jessie and Buzz, you know, end up, you know, having, you know, they end up dancing to the Spanish version of A Friend and Me. Hay un amigo en mí, is that one. And then we, of course, have the cast. We, of course, have Tom Hanks as Woody, Tim Allen as Buzz. We have Joan Cusack, excuse me, as Jessie, Blake Clark as Slinky Dog. He had to place Jim Varney because Jim Varney passed away in 2000. Ned Beatty is Lotso Huggin Bear. John Morris is Andy Davis, or Andy all grown up. Don Rickles is Mr. Potato Head. Wallace Shawn is Rex. John Ratzenberger is, of course, Ham. Estelle Harris is Mrs. Potato Head. And then let's see here. Michael Keaton is Ken. And we have Jodie Benson as Barbie. So we got Ariel playing Barbie, which I just love. Not too much else. We have Timothy Dalton as Mr. Pricklepants, which Timothy Dalton is this very like refined British actor. For some reason I want to say he's played James Bond, but I don't remember if that's true. I do know he was in Doctor Who at one point as like one of the, you know, evil Time Lords or whatever. He's in that. We have Kristen Schaal as Trixie, as the Trixie the T-Rex. She's a comedian. Jeff Garlin as Buttercup, the unicorn. Bonnie Hunt as Dolly, and Whoopi Goldberg as Stretch, the stretchy octopus. So I really like how they did that. I really love, like, you know, new inclusion of the toys and everything, and you know, they're in a happy place now with Bonnie, where she'll take good care of them, you know, up until we get to Toy Story 4, but there's a difference with Toy Story 4. So we see that and everything, so it's just like this nice way of doing it. So that's what I have for this video. I thank you very much for watching. Sorry I got a little bit emotional there at the end, but what can I say? It's like good animation with good storytelling, you know, that can, you know, if it affects you that way, then like that's just like a bonus for the directors and the producers and the writers and everything like that, because it's like their goal was to emotionally affect you, to gain this emotional attachment to these characters out of you. And they succeeded, very much so. So, yeah. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the movie, and I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!
Now, Woody. He's been my pal for as long as I can remember. He's brave, like a cowboy should be, and kind and smart. But the thing that makes Woody special is he'll never give up on you. Ever. He'll be there for you, no matter what.